want to welcome you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. Here's today's question. Is the rapture pre-trib or post-trib? Now, that's one of those frequently asked questions. Allow me to define the terms, then we'll address the question. The idea, the concept of a rapture. Biblically speaking, it is a supernatural transportation of somebody from one location to another by the Lord Himself. We often think of the rapture with second coming events, but actually the book of Acts has a rapture event when Philip, who shared the gospel with the Ethiopian eunuch, was immediately, quote, caught up and immediately transported by the Lord to another physical location. It's the exact same word that we see in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 regarding being caught up to be with the Lord. Now, the tribulation is this 7-year time period that the book of Daniel spoke of specifically in chapter 9, Jesus addressed in Matthew chapter 24, and the book of Revelation chapter 6 through 19 gives us exhaustive detail regarding the judgment of God on the rebellious people of earth. Now, the big question is, will this being caught up to be with the Lord, 1 Thessalonians 4, happen before the 7 years or, quote, after the 7 years? Will the church as we know it have to endure what we know as the Great Tribulation? In fact, there are even some out there who advocate what they call a, quote, pre-wrath rapture, meaning the church will endure the first 3.5 years, but not the second 3.5. Now, I realize this is a 60-minute question that we're going to answer in 2 or 3 minutes, but the main passages regarding a rapture are found in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 50 through 55, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 13 through 18, and Matthew chapter 24, exhaustively about verses 36 through 40 to 42. Why is that important? Because those are the 3 main passages, but they sound very different. 1 Thessalonians, 1 Corinthians, it's almost as if life is going about as it always has been, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Lord calls, and His people, both dead and alive, their bodies come to meet in the air. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus, speaking of the literal second coming, it's very tribulational. It talks about all kinds of wars and rumors of wars and all kinds of events that we would place in that passage of Revelation chapter 6, Revelation chapter 6 through 19. Now, why do I give you all this information? Because I think the answer is yes, meaning both. In fact, I think one of the big issues we have with rapture theology is we try to take all these passages and force them into whatever our, quote, theory is. I know people who are diehard pre-tribulational rapturists, and it doesn't matter what the passage says, we're all leaving before the tribulation. And I know other people who say it doesn't matter what the passage says, we're all going to have to endure the tribulation. What if the answer is both? In fact, I think there is scriptural evidence that the Lord, prior to the tribulation, i.e. 1 Thessalonians and 1 Corinthians, is going to call His church home to be with Him. And I do think there's evidence, not just in Matthew 24, but also in Revelation chapter 11, that during the tribulation, those quote-unquote tribulational saints will be caught up to be with the Lord. But here's the great news. In Revelation 19, when Jesus physically returns to earth to reign over the earth for 1,000 years, all of the saints of days past are with Him. We've all been caught up at that point. I know there's a lot of disagreements and dissension on these, shall we say, perspectives. I think the big problem is when we take our, quote, preference or our opinion and force all the scriptures when 2 Timothy says to rightly divide the scriptures. I believe there's evidence that there will be a, quote, rapture of the church prior to the 7-year tribulation. And I also believe there's evidence that those who become believers during the tribulation will be caught up at the end, thus saying that both perspectives are actually biblically true. Thank you so much for your question. You can submit yours to askjeff.net. Maybe your question will be tomorrow. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at askjeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.